Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name's Diane Arthur, and I have the honor of serving as a deputy city manager for this beautiful city of Surprise, Arizona. 20 years ago, I was a broadcast business reporter working in downtown Phoenix in the KTAR newsroom. It was a regular September drive time show. Until 5:46 a.m. local time, a plane struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Our newsroom went into a flurry of activity, breaking news sounds from Associated Press and ABC News. Every television was turned to every cable station across the country. We saw smoke billowing out of that tower. And not long after, in the 6 o'clock hour, we saw on live television another plane crash into the second tower. I know I will never forget where I was on that day, and those of you old enough to remember can remember exactly where you were at the moment you found out about those terrorist attacks. It's something that lives in each of us every day. We have some amazing speakers here today that will share their stories and their memories of that day as well. But before we begin with the program, I'd first like to ask you to please rise, if able, for the presentation of colors by the Surprise Police and Fire Medical Departments, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
On guard, officer, all uniformed personnel, Captain, Pipe Major, and to our command. Present.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Mark time. Mark. Up, sir. Mark. Forward. Mark.
You may be seated. On September 11, 2001, the nation watched in horror as planes controlled by terrorists crashed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania headed for our U.S. Capitol. Nearly 3,000 people killed. And these attacks, they were meant to weaken our spirit as Americans. They were to create fear inside of us daily. But instead, it strengthened our unity. They grew our resolve to show the world that the United States of America is, in fact, and always will be, the land of the free and the home of the brave. The phrase above me on the banner rolled off our tongues. We will never forget. 20 years later, here we are. We have not forgotten. We are here to pay tribute to those who sacrificed their lives and to our heroes who displayed great courage on that day. We have some wonderful speakers here to share their stories with you. Our Honorable Mayor Skip Hall, followed by Fire Medical Chief Tom Abbott and Police Chief Benny Pena. Please welcome the Honorable Mayor Skip Hall to the podium.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. I'm Mayor Skip Hall, and I'd like to acknowledge some special guests that are here today. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko is with us, State Director Keith Fort, and State Representative Frank Carroll. Thanks also to my fellow city council members who are here today, Vice Mayor Duffy, Councilman Judd, and Councilman Hastings. As Diane said, today is a solemn day. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost 20 years ago on Tuesday, September 11th. Innocent lives that were taken suddenly and senselessly because of brutal terrorist attacks on our nation. More than 400 of those lost were first responders, including 23 New York City police officers, 37 Port Authority workers, and 343 New York City firefighters. The memorial at the front of this stage, right here, lists the names of all the public safety personnel killed in the terrorist attacks, and encases a piece of twisted steel from the World Trade Center. The city keeps this memorial on display year-round in the lobby of City Hall as a reminder of sacrifice and heroism. Sadly, many other first responders suffer from the effects of that day, both emotionally and physically. Men and women in uniform showed extraordinary courage that day. And in the days and weeks following, citizens across the country chose to don a different type of uniform in defense of our country and as part of our military. In the year following 9/11, more than 180,000 Americans enlisted in the ranks of active duty service. More than 72,000 joined the enlisted reserves. America saw the attacks as a call to action. We saw it as an opportunity to rise up with bravery and unity, a time to prove that we will not be shaken. On the day of the attacks, President George W. Bush delivered a televised address from the Oval Office declaring, quote, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." Today, as we mourn the loss of those lives taken on 9/11, we also remember what it means to be an American. And that is something I'm deeply proud of. Thank you, and please welcome Fire Medical Chief Tom Abbott.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Mayor Hall. And as the mayor mentioned, I am Tom Abbott, your fire chief. I would like to begin my comments by thanking every military veteran, member of law enforcement, and member of the fire service that has served, particularly those who were motivated to serve following the tragedies that our country experienced on September 11th, 2001. The mayor mentioned that more than 400 first responders lost their lives while bravely trying to protect the lives of innocent people of all backgrounds and faiths. Let us also remember the 2,606 innocent people that perished at the World Trade Centers, the 125 souls that were lost at the Pentagon, the heroic actions of the passengers of United Airlines Flight 93 as they overtook the terrorist hijackers and crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing all 44 people on board. The horrifying images of two towers coming down Those people on the streets running to escape the dust. The carnage at the Pentagon. The remnants of the crash at Shanksville. And the images of all the first responders at all three sites. Let us consider the effects of September 11th. Since that day, more than 1,140 people who lived in Lower Manhattan have been diagnosed with cancer as a result to their exposure to the toxic dust. Since 2011, or since September 11th, 2001, more than 1,400 firefighters and police officers have died from diseases associated with working in the debris of the buildings looking for victims. Countless others, including very close friends of mine, are still experiencing respiratory issues. Before our recent withdrawal from Afghanistan, 3,846 members of our military forces made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedom during the almost 20 years of Operation Enduring Freedom. Please do not forget the emotional toll that the surviving family members have endured since September 11th. Surprise Fire Medical Assistant Chief Chip Gleason and I were members of the Phoenix Fire Department's Urban Search and Rescue Team, Arizona Task Force 1. In January 1994, we deployed to the Northridge earthquake in California. In April of 1995, we arrived 11 hours after the explosion occurred at the bombing of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. As we arrived at what was left of a 9-story building, we saw the last living victim removed. The number of victims was staggering, 168 people, of which 19 were children at a daycare center. We thought nothing would ever surpass this tragic domestic terror attack that was committed by an ideologically driven extremist. The events of September 11, 2001 proved us wrong. I was there with Arizona Task Force 1 in late December 2001 with the hope that a search team would find at least some identifiable piece of flesh from 3 firefighters I knew and were among the missing. Deputy Chief John Fanning, who we knew as Jack, Tommy Gardner, and John Palelio. Nothing was ever identified as being associated with Jack, and small pieces were eventually identified as being Tommy and John. On some level, this was predictable, the scale of the damage and rubble pile left from the 2 110-story buildings that had collapsed. The damage to the adjoining World Trade Center buildings in the complex was enormous. Let us also consider and reflect on how our elected officials and members of the various governmental agencies that served our country at that time united us. How this attack on our country united us together with a common purpose. Inspiration was found in simple gestures, such as raising the American flag on the rubble pile by members of FDNY. Our home soil had not been attacked by an external agent since 1941. We saw the number of enlistments in the military increase to protect our freedom, as the mayor noted. Yet we also proved through the 9/11 Commission that we still had a lot to learn about intelligence, information sharing, the Middle East, and about religions that we were not familiar with. As an example, Balbir Singh Sodhi, who was a member of the Sikh faith, was murdered in Mesa on September 15th, 2001. Because he wore a turban and was an immigrant from India, he was wrongly killed by a vigilante. All these events and tragedies led both Deputy City Manager Tracy Montgomery and I to seek a higher level of education to protect our communities. We were both accepted and pursued postgraduate degrees from the Naval Postgraduate School's Center for Homeland Defense and Security. I believe we have utilized our education experience to help mitigate, plan, and prepare our community for the next unforeseeable national emergency. United States Code Title V, Part 3, requires an oath of all civil service and uniformed services. Our founding fathers included a requirement in the Constitution for an oath to be administered to federal and state officials. The first Congress identified the words, "I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic." It is an honor to serve with the City of Surprise's public safety team. We are committed to protecting and providing the highest level of emergency response to our citizens. Now, please allow me to introduce Police Chief Benny Pena.
Good morning. I am Benny Pena. I am your police chief. The many lessons of the past teach great societies to reflect on their current situation as opportunities to improve the lives of the citizens they serve. As Americans, we have a proud history of focusing our talents to improve our society. History will tell us that the days leading up to the attacks of 9/11 were filled with local issues, everyday living, and a very focused love of our Arizona Diamondbacks. We were without concern for conflicts outside our border. We had fought military battles in regions throughout the globe, but we had no concern for that fight coming to our shores. Law enforcement, both local and federal, were responding to crime and societal issues as they always had. At that time, there was a focus on guns, gangs, and just general crime. Local agencies interacted with federal agencies when necessary, but no true partnerships. For my part, I was an investigative supervisor in a robbery detail that co-investigated bank robberies with the Federal Bureau of Investigations. It was a competitive partnership. We co-investigated and wrote 2 separate investigations, 2 separate reports, and 2 separate records management systems. The follow-up investigation could be coordinated, but oftentimes because of scheduling conflicts wasn't. My detectives would find someone to talk to and either had to wait for the agent or interviewed them separately and then try to compare notes later on. It was a cumbersome system, and it was based on competition for that ultimate case clearance. The entire situation changed on September 12th. As the shock of the attacks was still fresh, every federal agency was tasked with domestic terrorism cases. They had an overwhelming amount of surveillance and vetting of all foreign nationals living in the U.S. to complete in a short period of time. They quickly realized they needed the local agency manpowers to assist. Our Congress invoked emergency powers to allow an unprecedented access to information and electronic surveillance methods to get this initial investigation completed. Everyone went to work with that goal in mind. That investigation evolved into the modern public safety system we have today. Federal agencies, police departments, fire and medical departments, all working together. Unified command centers are already organized and can quickly open up during natural disasters, large public events such as the Super Bowl, and in support of the medical community as was recently seen during this pandemic. The Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, also known as ACTIC, exists under the direction of the Arizona Department of Public Safety, Arizona Department of Homeland Security, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and all other local public safety agencies. They coordinate an incredible amount of intelligence on threats at all levels of society. Local police departments now have Homeland Defense Bureaus. Police officers and firefighters train and work together on threat mitigation planning for large events. Federal agents embed with local agencies to provide intelligence support, both to inform the agency on all national threat levels and to assist with current investigations. Multiple task forces exist under federal agency support, combating local crime issues and gathering intelligence and support for all public safety. The flow of intelligence is seamless. Partnerships and the sharing of resources amongst all agencies is now the norm. Success is not about individual agency success. your public safety system has studied history. The message and goal is consistent. Never again, never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your inspirational words and sharing of your stories today. Our Surprise Fire Medical Department will now perform a ceremonial bell ringing, which will be followed by the playing of taps by Surprise Police Department Commander Philip Johnson, followed by a moment of silence, Amazing Grace, and a prayer by Chaplain Nick Petrucci.
Audience, will you please rise? Honor guard, officers, all uniformed personnel, out and two.
The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with a more dangerous work environment than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategies and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but our goals remain the same as they were in the past: to save lives and to protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. This is what we do. This is our chosen profession. This is the tradition of the firefighter. The fire service of today is ever-changing, but is steeped in traditions 200 years old. One such tradition is the sound of a bell. In the past, as firefighters began their tour of duty, it was the bell that signaled the beginning of that day's shift. Throughout the day and night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which summoned these brave souls to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. And when the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, it was the bell that signaled to all the completion of that call. When a firefighter had died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it was the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We utilize these traditions as symbols, which reflect honor and respect on those who have given so much and who have served so well. To symbolize the devotion that these brave souls had for their duty, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represents the end of our comrades' duties and that they will be returning to quarters. And so, to those who have selflessly given their lives for the good of their fellow man, their task completed, their duties well done, to our comrades, their last alarm, they are going home.
Would you please join me in prayer? Gracious God, thank you for this day and this opportunity to remember and to honor the victims and all those who answered the call the morning of September 11th, 2001, and those heroes that sacrificed their lives in attempting to rescue those victims. Lord, I pray for all the men and women who responded to the scenes and worked so hard and diligently in unthinkable circumstances to search for victims. I pray for the many who have died and are dealing with illnesses because of the effects of the contaminants on them physically and emotionally. I pray for every veteran killed in action, active, and those retired that have put their lives on the line in protection of this great country. Lord, I pray for all the families that are hurting so badly today as they remember the evil events of September morning 20 years ago today that forever changed our lives with the loss of their loved ones. I would like to pray for our current police, fire, medical personnel, and our military. Please protect them, Lord, and watch over them as they respond to the calls for help and stand in the gap for our protection in our communities and around the world. Father God, please be with those in leadership positions and give them wisdom and discernment for those difficult decisions that they must make. We ask you, Lord, please deliver us from evil. And may we remember, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. May we take a moment to read what our currency says on the back. It boldly proclaims, United States of America, in God we trust. May we never forget the sacrifices that were made for this great country and its people. And may we never forget the sacrifices you made by sending your son for us. God, you are our 9/11. Please help us. Amen.
Following the dismissal of uniformed personnel, that will conclude our program. Thank you all for being here today.